Morning. I don't know where the legacy man is this morning, but put that one up for him instead. So yeah, this morning talking about legacy. Does one want to leave one? Can a legacy be a positive or a negative, I suppose? And I think in some cases it can be both. So let's talk about legacy, Lee.
Yeah, it's a rich word in many ways. So I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say. I've sort of looked at it in different angles, so I don't know if my thoughts are going to be a little bit too scattered. But the one aspect that I was thinking about was the word legacy, and that there's this little word leg that sits in the front of it. And it reminded me of words like giving a leg up, as well as what I was thinking about footprints in the sand. And a game I used to play with my kids was, walking along the beach, and then they would follow my footprints, and then I would play games with them, and they'd have to try and leap and jump and go in all different shapes and sizes. And then that also led to me thinking about walking in the bush, and especially if it's not a path, and you're actually doing a bit of bundu bashing. I'm sure you know what that means, Edward. And there's branches across the way, and thorns sticking out, and if you walk ahead and you've got the little ones behind you, and you're saying, okay, there's a branch here, or you either hold it, so you're either giving a heads up, or you're holding it back, or I walked many times on farm roads as well, and you have to pick up the barbed wire fence, and there's one or two people who holding the barbed wire fence open, and so you can get through. So those are the images that I have in my mind around legacy. It's about clearing the road ahead as much as you can. And I think what I like about the footprint story, or even the bundu bashing, is once you've walked that path, it pretty much goes back to the way it is. Maybe there's a little bit more of a track, or maybe there's a little bit more of a pathway. So I feel fairly realistic that I'm not changing the world, as much as that was my aim in life when I was 18 years old. That I leave some footprints behind, and I've cleared the path a little way. There's hopefully there's a little bit more sky that's being shown, but when I've gone over after a period of time, it will go back, and it will be as my life. It's not. There's no statue that's going to be built that's going to need to either be polished or toppled at some point in time. So that's the one thought. And then I was also thinking about what I've inherited. So for me, legacy is also about inheritance. And so what have I inherited from my parents, from my grandparents, from my ancestors? And my domestic worker is going through a period of training at the moment to become a traditional healer. And I've been privileged to see some of the video footage of some of the ceremony that she's had to perform. And she's in this trance and this dancing. And I said to her, she prefers to be called Lucky. I said, Lucky, it's amazing that she's in this dance state for days and days. And I said, I'm just so amazed at what you do. And she said, you know what, Lee, I'm half me and half my ancestors. Now, whatever you want to believe, that's up to you, but it's just an image for me of recognizing that there are people that we perhaps don't even acknowledge that have lived their lives and are part, and not deliberately, but have contributed something to who you are. You're not just the sum of your genes. There's a history that you come with that influences who you are and how you show up. And as Ivan said, that's for good and for bad. And then the last thing I want to say is I've worked with some young kids that have come. They would describe themselves, when they introduce themselves, they would, I think I might have said this before, they would introduce themselves as saying, I'm from a rural area, which means you've got water and electricity every now and again, or I'm from a deep rural area, which means I've got to collect my water from a community tap, and I've got no electricity, and I've got deep rural, which means I go to the river.
Sorry, now can I phone you at 8:40?
So that's so those and these young people gathered. They were chosen from around the country to be sponsored for an IT program, and I was in charge of doing the life and business skills part of their development. And to form a relationship with these young people, when I don't share their background and I don't share their culture, but I can give what I can in that moment. And it goes, again, the moment goes. This, I'm talking about something that happened 4 or 5 years ago. But to give them some sense of self-belief, to give them a sense of courage, of resilience, that the strangeness of the city will wear off, that what they've put their minds to, as difficult as it is, they will be able to do it. And these are the things that I'm hoping and trusting that I've contributed. So that's also, for me, legacy, is what have I contributed? And it might just be in that moment that I have that opportunity, and I take that opportunity, and then hopefully it's made a difference. So that's my conversation around legacy, and I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, legs of legacy. So thanks Lee for that. Yeah, and the reason I put up that little image behind me there is there's a beach that doesn't have a single footprint on it. It's all gone. Not long after dawn one morning, I took that photograph down on the Southern Cape Coast. Was part of my legacy for a while, but that's another story we can get onto at another time. So Ed, let's get across to you next.
Yes, of course, legacy means a completely different thing in Ivan's world, because there's legacy systems, which are old sort of computer programs which cause problems and all sorts of stuff. So they have negative connotations. But I think I must have a legacy system in my brain somewhere, because when Lee talked about legacy, I thought about a Honda Legend. It was a car that I envied in about 1987. There was a coupe version with a 2.7 litre V6 engine in it, and I wanted one. And then I was sort of distracted by the Nissan Skyline GTR, which is a 2.7 litre flat six. And then after that little flirtation, I got pulled back to Honda with the NSX, which was a 3.2 litre V6 engine. And what's that got to do with legacy? Well, the Honda Legend had 5 generations of cars of that name, but the Nissan Skyline has had 13 generations of that car. And I think for me, that's about legacy. Legacy is about building on stuff. It's not about building a monument or building a statue or creating something. It's about giving a platform for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. I never did have any of those cars, but I did manage to get a Corrado VR6, which is a 2.9 litre engine in a thing the size of a Golf. So that was pretty good fun. And I think, you know, people, particularly when they're building businesses, that they want to impose their will on future generations. That is their legacy, and they put it in trusts, or they do it by creating this huge figure that future generations fear, and they try not to have it changed. Or they build a huge building which people have to inhabit. But I don't think legacy should be like that. They should be, and Lee made the point. Oh no, sorry, not Lee. It was in the song. How will they be remembered? And I don't think you should be remembered. That's not what a legacy is about. It's not about you. And for me, I'd like to think that my legacy is that, and Lee did say this, to give people a step up. I just hope that I've helped people take 1 or 2 steps on the ladder to success, whatever that success is. And I see there's lots of car things going on in the chat, but I'm not going to read the chat until afterwards. And I think of my legacy as little ripples in a pond, and those ripples will die out. But I hope that people touched by those ripples will create their own ripples, and people touched by those ripples will create their own ripples. And in that way, my legacy will stretch on into eternity, but no one will know it was me. So that's my thoughts on legacies. And yeah, if someone wants to buy me a car, you know, NSX would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I think what's happened here is you've traded it in for a 67 EC with 2 flat feet that does 10 liters to 350 Ks. But right, is it? Okay, so right on that note, Trevor, what's legacy all about for you?
Now, well, I don't want to burst Jasper's bubble because he invited me in to actually proofread and work around his original production legacy, which I think is a fantastic publication. But it's in all my lifetime, legacy has never been anything that has been a targeted focus of mine, which doesn't mean to say that I don't appreciate the direction that Jasper has taken with looking to get people to focus on the legacy that they leave in life. And I'm trying to think back as to why it hasn't been an important concept for me. And I think it's very much like Ed. I think it's about the ripples that you actually leave, and that others can actually pick up on those ripples. And we probably have a version of that written in our Wisdom's the Difference Maker, where we talk of everyone is a role model for positive or negative. And I think the basic foundation for me is what you leave in life, does it, or what you do in life, does it add value to society, or does it take away from society? For me, that is the basic tenet or the basic foundation for anything that you do, which allows you to differentiate between the type of individual you're going to be. So, you know, I'm perhaps going to step back here because as much as I don't have legacy in my lexicon, I'll go and look that word up, Ed, because I actually don't understand what it means. I really appreciate that Jasper has done something really big with this, this particular word, and that it's come from his heart. So I'm going to step back here because I know the importance of that word to Jasper.
I don't know if your legacy is conning Lex, but yeah, I'm sure he didn't appreciate that. So anyway, so yeah, look, I think before we go to Jasper, because this is his topic of note, you know, I'm just going to add in my 2 pence worth to the discussion before I hand over to him. Yeah, I think it, you know, for me, it is an interesting word, and I think in some you know, in some cultures it's a very important word, in other cultures it's not. You know, for me, I think legacy is more about what you instill in people along the way, or what you offer them to learn from along the way, rather than leaving something when you know, when you've gone. I mean, many people might think of, as the song said, you know, the pictures on the walls and the monuments and maybe the bank accounts and the investments and those sorts of things people see as legacy. And I think that's just, for me, an element of what legacy could be. For me, I think what's more important is the characters that you help grow along the way, and I think that's really, as Trevor mentioned, the difference maker for me comes into that. It's about character, it's about development, it's about and we've spoken about it in some of the other sessions that we've had. You know, the impact you have on individual lives. I mean, Ed mentioned that, and then I mean, I think, you know, what he does in terms of his outreaches and things is for me a massive legacy, and it's a legacy that will probably largely go unnoticed by the world, which is fine. But it's a legacy that I think you know, will have. I don't think those ripples will necessarily die out. I think they'll continue to ripple out further and further from those individuals whose lives you've impacted, and they'll impact others based on the impact that you've had. So I really think that it's a legacy that will continue well beyond your time and into the future of those that you've been involved with. And for me, that is true legacy in a way, because it's a selfless legacy. Yeah, I think lots of legacies do just disappear like footprints on the beach with the morning tides. You know, people have worked hard and believed that they're heading in the right direction, but it's, you know, material things are very easy just to be washed away by the winds and the sands and the tide and disappear into the mists of time. I think a lot easier than the kind of legacy that you know, a personal impact has on an individual life. So those are my thoughts. Jasper, over to you to tell us what it's really all about.
Morning. Yeah, and the reason for me being late is we had power failure again somewhere during the night, and it just messed up my computers big time. But here we are. So
that's a legacy of a different kind, isn't it?
It's a yes, and we've visited the topic of legacy quite a few times recently, and every time it leaves you with different thoughts about the whole thing. And I was reflecting on this whole thing, and I'm happy that I went the way that I did. But I made a note here: is it hindsight? And what I mean by that is many of the stories, and I don't know, you know, I was in story Lee shared yesterday with that Lego founder who didn't start off planning plastic little blocks for. He was a carpenter or a, you know, furniture maker. So when did he? So the question is, when did he realize he's onto something with his toys? So his initial toys did not resemble Lego blocks at all. Like I think you said it was like pulling ducks on wheels or stuff like that. So I'm intrigued by, and it's almost master's hand directing the affairs of men, so that you start on a journey and you get some obstacles along the way, and that forces you to make adjustments, And somehow some people just adjust, and in hindsight, wow, brilliant. The impact they had on life. I just read a story yesterday of Carver. I think the name is Carver, a black American. And his story, and he's the big inventor on peanuts. But he grew up in the home of slaves, and they were just freed when he was a baby. So he never knew slavery, but obviously it was very steep in his history. And it was at the time when blacks were far in the minority in America and looked down upon as a weaker kind of citizen. But he had an incredible mind, and he ended up as a professor in botany, very intrigued on the genetic manipulation of plants and how to improve them. But he also grew up a very staunch Christian, with a person with God, and he would have conversations like we have in Wisdoms with God, and he relates to for the secrets of the universe, and he sends that God says, young man, that's too big for you, but I'll show you the peanut. And then in literally crushing the peanut and reducing it to its original things like the fat and the protein and the gum and the resin and whatever, he started to say, okay, so this, and then he started to put it back together. But the list of inventions that came out of just the peanut was, and that where that region that he lived in was steeply dependent on sugarcane, and that market went down. That became the next a big industry. So now in hindsight, he's remembered for his achievements, but throughout his life, he was just a humble man, wanting to learn more, and being the most productive he can be. So that's putting their planned or hindsight. So I think legacy for what you will be remembered for, that mustn't be the issue. You mustn't start off your journey by saying, I want a monument to be erected in my honor for this and this and that. Because then, like Ivan says, the sands and the wind and the erosion will just wipe away whatever work you do. I think the secret is to find out who you are, your relationship and your purpose here on earth. And then I want to come back to Edward's the impact that he would have had would not be noticed here on earth, but who knows in eternity what ripple effects it would have. And I think of a very simple story that we all know about. Paul wrote basically all the books in the New Testament, but he started off with as a bit of a shady character, and then had a conversion. But the church of that time didn't trust him, hated him, because of all the bad things he did. He was left to one man, Ananias, who felt called by God to say, Paul is in that place, go and pray for him. And that little prayer, Ananias, made the scales fell off Paul's eyes, and he became the Paul that the Bible eventually knows. Now, you never read Ananias any further, unless it was now written up in the Bible. So I'm holding on to this eternity vision of we don't do much here on earth, but once we've done our bit here on earth, there will be an eternity where time stands still, and then start picking up the threads of what happened to this person and that person. And there's a nice song out there, Thank You, that alludes to the fact that you arrive in heaven and feeling a failure, that you haven't achieved much in your life. And then one by one, people come to you and say, remember the time when I was, you were a Sunday school teacher and I was in your class, and one day you asked people to give their hearts to the Lord, and here I am, this was what happened to my life. And then one by one, a long line of people appear to this man, little deeds that has ripple effects. So I'm a firm believer that I think if you can relax in the knowledge that find your purpose, work diligently with all you have towards it. Don't worry about, again, your Lego story. His factory burned down twice, you say. So it's not the losses that you will incur and the curveballs that you will have to face in your life, but it's by keeping your eyes on this inner goal that another person might not understand, and it will, I believe, will all make sense in the end, and that will be your legacy.
Thanks, Jasper. Yeah, well, we all hope it will all make sense in the end. And one does wonder sometimes, I must be honest, but yeah, it's definitely interesting how one word can engender so many different angles and topics. You know, I mean, it even mentioned in legacy systems and things like that. And so yeah, it's used in so many different ways as English tends to be done, which makes it really complex to understand at times. But anyway, that's legacy, I suppose. So Lee, what's our legacy for tomorrow?
Well, I was sort of wondering, and then you said something now, Ivan, and I just want to throw it out there and just find out if this would be this, you know, the power of words, and just wanting to maybe investigate that a little bit is, yeah, let's just leave it at that. What is the power of words? I know we might have touched on this in the past, but I don't know that we've actually gone into it in any depth. So let's explore that tomorrow.
Great, thanks, Lee. Yeah, I think in this country sometimes we wish our words could be power because we seem to be without it a little bit too regularly these days. But the power of words, yeah, strength of language. So have a great day, folks, and we'll be using some words tomorrow, hopefully, to have a discussion. So we'll see you then. Go well.